I'm guessing you want to bake bread consistently, but something's holding you back. Either it's too complicated and time consuming, too finicky, or you've tried it before and just wound up with a hot, sticky mess. This channel is called Journey of a Cook, not Journey of a Chef. I'm not a professional, I'm just a guy who loves to cook, and I want to share my journey with you. Let's get our go juice and get into it. Now that we got our go juice, let's talk about why you want to bake bread. Is it because you want to bake the perfect loaf? Or be seen as a great baker? Do you just want to put some comfort food on the table for your family? Or maybe you just want to try it because you never have. The why matters. If you don't get that right in the beginning, you're gonna get frustrated because you're missing a mark that you didn't know you were shooting for. If your goal is to bake a perfect loaf of bread, then you're gonna have to put in so much time and effort. But if you're in the other two camps and you just wanna bake bread for your family or just to try it, you're in the right place. For my journey, bread was half my childhood. My grandma would bake a loaf every few days, and when it came out, the fresh smell of it would hit you. You'd cut it after 10 or 15 minutes, and slather it in butter, and it just brings back great memories. After I left the house for the next 10 or 15 years, I baked maybe 3 loaves of bread. And every time, it was a disaster. In the last 2 months, I've actually started baking some bread. It hasn't gone perfectly, but I've learned so much. I've probably made 10 or 15 loaves. And just in that short amount of time, I've learned so much. My suggestion is to start with baker's percentages. I'll put a little box over here so that you can see what they are. They're not a rule, they're just a great place to start. And if you're like me and didn't want to make it too complicated, you don't want to have to buy special flours just to see if this is something you want to do. So use your all-purpose flour. Use whatever flour you have. I will say, if you're using an all-purpose flour, start with 60% water, maybe 65%. Don't be caught up in this ideal of making an 80% water perfect sourdough. If you're using all-purpose flour, your bread's not gonna be that. So start with 60% water and adjust. The next loaf, make it 65 or 70% water and see what happens. Your dough might be stickier, it might not hold its shape, but you've learned something in the process. From my experience over the past couple of months, I'd say start with a mindset to learn how to bake bread. Not that you're going to be perfect, but that you're gonna adjust and grow with experience. The secret to making bread is experience. That's why our grandmas and great-grandmas could make great bread, because they've been doing it for 50, 60, 70 years. And we're not at that place right now. Maybe we will be one day, but right now we're just starting out. I heard a quote, which I'm gonna paraphrase here. It's not about the quality of the bread, it's about the quantity of the bread that you make leading to quality. Making one loaf of bread, you're not gonna be great at it. Even if you spent a month researching and then baked this loaf of bread, it's not gonna be perfect. But if you make a loaf of bread every day for the next 30 days, it's gonna start to be great bread. For my journey, bread was really time consuming those first few weeks. I spent too much time watching it proof and researching, did I knead it correctly? You don't have to waste all of that time. We can let the bread work for us. We can do so many things to customize our bread and our recipe to allow it to fit into our schedule, rather than having to use our entire day off trying to proof this perfect loaf of bread. We can knead it for 5 extra minutes after we mixed it up to develop some gluten. If we miss our first 30-minute check-in for our stretch and fold, no problem. Wait an hour. Try it then. See what happens. There's no way to really fail at baking bread. You can proof the bread in the fridge overnight and bake it the next morning. If it's not holding its shape, you can even just put it in a loaf pan after you've shaped it and let it spread out into all the corners. Throw it in the fridge. Wait a day or two. Now, these aren't the perfect ways for making bread, and there will be a little bit of deficit in the quality of our loaf, but my point is we can customize it to our schedule rather than feeling like we are on this timetable of watching our bread for the entire day. There's a great guy on YouTube called Abdaal who has a quote that I'll try and paraphrase. He says, if you want to start anything, first get going, then get good. And I think that really applies to bread making in this case. Just start making bread and let your experience guide you into learning and adjusting as you go until you actually get good at the thing you're trying to do. At the end of the day, it's really hard for a loaf of bread that's fresh to be bad. Every loaf I've made, whether the crumb's too tight or I didn't have an oven spring and it spilled out, no matter what happened, it was always delicious. My hope for this video is that it gives you some initial confidence to get started, to try some things, to learn, to fail, to adjust, to gain experience. So let's get going.